Hey everyone, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today, and this time we're going to be looking at this booklet called Making the Most of Ramadan. It's
Oh,
by Khurram Murad, and it's put out by the Islamic Learning Foundation in Chicago.
right.
And so Ramadan is a very, very special month for Muslims, and this booklet is all about like how to get the most out of the month.
Yeah, it's very practical advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. So let's just jump right into it. So the booklet starts off by kind of reminding us about how great Ramadan is.
Yes,
Um, and one of the first things it points out is that Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed.
it is. And that's what makes it so special. The Quran is a guidance for us.
Yeah.
It's the word of Allah, and for it to be revealed in this month,
Right.
gives it that much more significant.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a reminder,
Yeah.
right? To really go back and
To really
reflect on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the booklet talks a lot about taqwa, which is like piety, right? So it's like it's not just about not eating and drinking, but it's about really like making sure our actions are pleasing to Allah.
That's the whole point of fasting, right? It's to attain taqwa.
Yeah.
It's to become, people who avoid that which displeases Allah and do that which pleases him.
Yeah.
And it's not just, in our acts of worship, like fasting and praying,
Right.
but it's also, in our everyday dealings.
Yeah, how we treat other people.
How we treat others, how we conduct business, everything. It's an entire.
Yeah. It's like a way of life.
It is a way of life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a consciousness.
Yeah. So I like how the booklet it uses an example. It says like imagine rain falling on different types of land.
Okay.
Right? Some land is going to like really soak up that rain.
Yeah.
And it's going to become, it's going to flourish. It's going to
Yeah.
grow.
It's gonna.
Yeah.
Whereas like other land, like maybe a hard rock or something, it's just gonna.
It's going to, yeah. Stay hard. It's not going to absorb anything.
Nothing's gonna happen.
And so it's like, it's saying that with people around on, like some people really benefit and grow.
Yeah.
Whereas other people,
Right.
don't really change that much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really about, how we use this month.
Yeah. And the effort we put in
Yeah.
makes a big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So to help us with that, the booklet actually gives us 10 things, 10 points of advice, 10 things to focus on during Ramadan.
Okay, that sounds good. 10 tips. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I thought too. So the first one it talks about is intention and resolve,
Okay.
right? Which is niyyah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's basically, before we even start the month, we have to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons.
Absolutely. And we need to constantly remind ourselves of that intention throughout the month.
Yeah. Yeah. And be sincere.
Yes, because, actions are judged by intentions.
Right.
And so our intention should be to please Allah.
Yeah. To get closer to him.
Yes, not to show off, not because it's a cultural thing, not because everybody else is doing it,
Yeah.
but solely for the sake of Allah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to like maybe take some time before Ramadan even starts.
Yeah.
And like think about our goals.
Just reflect.
Yeah.
Make a plan.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. The second point the booklet makes is to bond with the Quran.
Yes. The Quran.
So, we mentioned before that Ramadan is the month in which it was revealed.
Right.
And so it's like, this is the perfect time to really, reconnect with it.
Absolutely. And even if it's just a small portion every day,
Yeah.
just to try to, understand the meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. To reflect on it.
To reflect on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was reading about how Angel Gabriel used to come to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him,
Yeah.
every Ramadan, and they would recite the entire Quran together.
They would. Yes.
And so it's like, that should be kind of our guide, right?
Mm.
To really like.
To really, immerse ourselves.
Yeah.
in the Quran.
Yeah. Okay. The third point is avoiding disobedience to Allah.
Right. So it's not just about abstaining from food and drink.
Yeah.
But it's also about controlling our tongue,
Yeah.
our anger,
Our actions.
our actions, our thoughts.
Yeah.
Everything that displeases Allah, we have to try to avoid it.
Yeah. There's a hadith, I think it's in Bukhari, that says that fasting is a shield.
It is, yes.
Right. So it protects us from these bad things.
From evil, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, it helps us, control ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even if we're like hungry or tired,
Yeah.
we still try to, not.
Not get angry, not say bad things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. So 3 down, 7 to go. Number 4, the booklet says quest for goodness.
Okay, so not just about avoiding bad,
Yeah.
but also doing good.
Right, right.
So actively seeking out opportunities to do good deeds.
Yeah, because in Ramadan, there are more rewards, right, for the good that we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a time to, amplify those good deeds.
Yeah, like helping others, giving charity,
Right.
even like smiling at somebody can be a good deed.
It can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being kind,
Yeah.
There's a hadith al-Qudsi where Allah says,
Okay.
"My servant does not draw near to me with anything more beloved to me than the religious duties I have enjoined upon him, and my servant continues to draw near to me with supererogatory works."
Right. So the things beyond what's required.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the things that are extra,
Yeah.
the things that we do out of love.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good point. So we should really like seek those out, those opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. We are halfway there. We are on to point number 5.
Yeah.
And this one is about night prayers.
Night prayers, yes, tahajjud.
Yeah.
It's a very special time.
Yeah. It's like that time, before Fajr, before dawn,
Right.
when I've heard that, like, that's when our du'as are most likely to be accepted.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Like Allah is closest to us.
Yeah, there's a beautiful hadith where Allah descends to the lowest heaven.
Right.
And he says, "Is there anyone asking for forgiveness, so I may forgive them? Is there anyone seeking sustenance, so I may provide for them? Is there anyone in distress, so I may relieve them?"
Yeah. It's like a very like intimate time, right?
It is.
To have that like connection with Allah.
Yeah, it's a special connection.
Yeah. So I think we've covered a lot. We'll cover the first 5 points. So maybe we should take a break here and we'll come back and cover the next 5
That sounds good.
in part 2.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Sounds good. So ready for the next 5 tips?
Yeah. I'm excited to hear what else the booklet has to say.
All right, number 6 is about zikr and duha.
Okay. So reminding ourselves about Allah and making dua to him.
Exactly. Zikr is remembering Allah, and duha is asking him for what we need.
Okay. That makes sense. And this is especially important during Ramadan, right?
It is, yeah. The booklet emphasizes that our du'as are more likely to be accepted during this month. We're fasting, we're praying more, we're trying to get closer to Allah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like a special time for connecting with him. Is there like a specific time that's good for making dua?
Well, the booklet mentions that the time just before breaking our fast is very powerful.
Oh, yeah. At iftar.
Yeah. It's like we're feeling grateful for the food, our hearts are open, it's a good time to make dua.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And what about zikr? Are there like some simple ways to remember Allah throughout the day?
Oh, absolutely. You can repeat phrases like subhanallah or alhamdulillah. You can also just think about Allah's greatness and all the blessings he's given us.
Yeah, yeah. Just keeping him in our minds and hearts. Okay, that's a good reminder. So what's the next tip?
Number 7. This one is about Laylatul Qadr and etikaf.
Oh, yes. Laylatul Qadr, the night of power. I've always found it so interesting because it's so special, but we don't know the exact night it falls on.
Right. It's a mystery. We know it's in the last 10 nights of Ramadan, but Allah hasn't revealed the exact date.
So we have to, like, search for it.
Exactly. The booklet says we should spend those last 10 nights in extra prayer and worship, like we're searching for a hidden treasure.
And the rewards for our good deeds are multiplied on that night, right?
Yes, many times over. So even if we don't know for sure which night it is, we're still getting closer to Allah by putting in that extra effort.
Right, right. And what about etikaf?
Etikaf is when you stay in the mosque for a period of time, focusing only on worship and getting closer to Allah.
So it's like a retreat, but in the mosque.
Yeah, exactly. And it's especially recommended during those last 10 nights because it helps us focus on finding Laylatul Qadr. You're already at the mosque ready to pray when it comes.
That's a good point.
Okay.
On to tip number 8.
Number 8 is about spending in Allah's way.
You mean like giving charity?
Yes, exactly. Giving sadaqah is important all the time, but even more so during Ramadan.
I've always been so inspired by how generous the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was, especially during Ramadan.
He was a beautiful example for us. He would give away so much to help those in need.
Yeah. It reminds me that, even if I can't give a lot, every little bit counts.
Absolutely. The sincerity of our giving is what matters most to Allah.
Okay. 2 more tips to go. What's next?
Number 9 is about serving humanity.
So doing good deeds, helping others, being kind.
Yes. It's about recognizing that Ramadan is a time for compassion and empathy. We should be extra mindful of those who are struggling and do whatever we can to ease their burdens.
So even small acts of kindness can make a big difference.
Absolutely. A kind word, a helping hand, a smile, it all adds up.
Okay, that's really inspiring. I love that Ramadan encourages us to look outward and focus on helping others. All right, bring on the 10th and final tip.
Tip number 10 is about sharing the message of the Quran.
Oh, that's interesting. So, like dawah, inviting others to Islam.
Yeah. The booklet emphasizes that Ramadan is a time when hearts are more open to the message of Islam.
Right. People might be thinking about spirituality more during Ramadan. So it's a good time to have those conversations.
Exactly. It could be just talking to people about your experience with Ramadan, or maybe inviting them to an iftar at your mosque.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's about showing them the beauty of Islam through our actions and our words.
Right. And it can be as simple as sharing an inspiring verse from the Quran on social media, just planting those seeds.
Okay, so those are all 10 tips. A lot to think about.
It is, but the booklet doesn't just stop there. It goes on to challenge us to think about the impact Ramadan has on our lives.
What do you mean?
Well, it asks, what's the point of going through all these rituals if they don't actually change us for the better?
That's a really good question. Like, are we just going through the motions or is it really transforming us?
Exactly. The booklet reminds us that true change comes from within. It's not just about the outward actions, but about the inward transformation of our hearts.
So how do we make sure that Ramadan actually has a lasting impact on us?
The booklet emphasizes the importance of sincerity and reflection. We need to constantly remind ourselves why we're fasting, why we're praying, and make sure our actions are aligned with our beliefs.
So it's about being mindful and intentional in everything we do. And like we talked about before, it's not just about avoiding bad things, but about actively seeking out opportunities to do good.
Right. And the booklet actually uses a really interesting analogy to illustrate this point.
Oh, I love analogies. Tell me.
It compares those who fail to benefit from the teachings of the Quran to a donkey carrying a load of books.
A donkey carrying books, what does that mean?
Well, the donkey is physically carrying the books, but it doesn't understand the knowledge they contain. It's just a burden.
So it's like, we might be doing all the outward actions of Ramadan, but if we're not actually absorbing the lessons and letting them change us, then it's all for nothing.
Exactly. We're just carrying the weight of Ramadan without reaping its benefits.
Wow, that's a powerful image. So how do we avoid becoming like that donkey? How do we make sure that Ramadan truly nourishes our souls and transforms us?
The booklet highlights the importance of connecting our actions to our intentions. We need to constantly ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Are we doing it for the sake of Allah? Are we seeking His pleasure?
So it's about having a clear purpose and making sure that our actions match our beliefs.
Exactly. And the booklet also encourages us to reflect on our actions and ask ourselves whether they are truly pleasing to Allah.
It's about taking that time to step back and evaluate our progress, right? To see if we're actually becoming more patient, more kind, more compassionate.
Right. And if we're not seeing those changes, then we need to figure out why and make some adjustments.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. We can't just assume that we're automatically becoming better people just because we're fasting. We need to be proactive about it.
Absolutely. And the booklet gives us some specific advice on how to do that.
Okay, like what?
Well, it encourages us to focus on specific areas where we want to improve during Ramadan. For example, if we have a bad temper, we can make a conscious effort to control our anger. If we gossip too much, we can try to hold our tongues. If we're not very generous, we can make an effort to give more charity.
So it's about identifying our weaknesses and using Ramadan as an opportunity to work on them.
Right. And even small changes made consistently can add up to big results.
It's about taking those small steps and trusting that Allah will guide us along the way.
Exactly. And don't forget to ask Allah for help. We can't do it on our own. We need His guidance and strength to make those changes.
That's a good reminder. It's about recognizing our limitations and relying on Allah's mercy.
Okay, so we've talked about being sincere, reflecting on our actions, and making a conscious effort to change. What else does the booklet say about making the most of Ramadan? The booklet reminds us that Ramadan isn't just about abstaining from food and drink, it's also about nourishing our souls with the words of Allah.
So going back to the Quran and really absorbing its message.
Exactly. Ramadan is a time to reconnect with the Quran, to read it with understanding, and to reflect on its teachings.
But how do we make sure that the Quran isn't just words on a page? How do we make it something that really touches our hearts and changes our lives?
The booklet encourages us to approach the Quran with humility and an open heart. We should ask Allah to help us understand its meaning and to guide us to the verses that are most relevant to our lives.
So it's about having a personal connection with the Quran, finding the verses that speak to our hearts.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that the Quran is a source of guidance for all aspects of our lives. It has answers to our questions, comfort for our sorrows, and inspiration for our journeys.
And Ramadan is a perfect time to rediscover that power and let it guide us. Okay, we've talked about a lot of individual things we can do. What about the community aspect of Ramadan?
Yes, the booklet emphasizes that Ramadan is a time for community and sharing. It's a time to strengthen our bonds with our families and friends and to reach out to those in need.
So it's about coming together as a community.
Exactly. It's about supporting each other, sharing meals, praying together, and just being there for one another.
And it's also about extending that spirit of generosity and kindness to everyone, right?
Absolutely. The booklet encourages us to reach out to those who are less fortunate, to invite them into our homes, and to share our blessings with them.
So Ramadan is about building a sense of unity and brotherhood within the Muslim community and beyond.
Right. It's about breaking down barriers, building bridges, and creating a more compassionate and inclusive society.
That's beautiful. And the booklet emphasizes that all of this should be done with a sincere desire to please Allah. It's not about seeking recognition or praise for ourselves.
Exactly. It's about doing things for the sake of Allah and trusting that He will reward us for our efforts.
And those rewards aren't just material things, right?
No, not at all. The true rewards of Ramadan are the spiritual blessings that Allah bestows upon those who sincerely seek His pleasure.
Okay, wow, we've really covered a lot today.
We have. We've explored the 10 tips from the booklet and talked about how to make sure that Ramadan truly transforms us.
It's been such an insightful discussion. Is there anything else you want to highlight before we move on to the last part of our deep dive?
Well, I think it's important to remember that the journey of Ramadan doesn't end when the month is over. It's a journey that continues throughout the year as we try to live up to the values we've cultivated during this holy month.
That's a great point. The lessons we learned during Ramadan should stay with us long after the last iftar.
Exactly. And maybe for the next part, we can delve into some of the challenges and rewards of carrying that spirit of Ramadan with us throughout the year.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so last time we were talking about how Ramadan is like a training ground, right? It's a time to really focus on becoming better Muslims.
Right. Better versions of ourselves.
Yeah. And the booklet uses that powerful image of the donkey and the books.
Yeah, just carrying them around, but not understanding the knowledge inside.
Right. It's like we don't want to be like that during Ramadan, just going through the motions.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be more than just outward actions.
So how do we actually make those changes stick? How do we make sure Ramadan has a real impact on us?
The booklet keeps coming back to this idea of sincerity, really understanding why we're doing these things.
And making sure our actions match our beliefs.
Yes. It's not enough to just pray and fast if we're not also living out those Islamic values in our everyday lives.
Right, like being kind and patient and generous.
Exactly. And those things should become habits, not just something we do for 30 days.
So even after Ramadan is over, we're still carrying that spirit with us.
Exactly. It's about making lasting changes, transforming ourselves from the inside out.
Yeah, it's not just about giving up food and drinks. It's about feeding our souls, too.
Yeah. And I think fasting actually helps with that, When we feel that hunger and thirst, it makes us think about those who are less fortunate.
Right. It makes us more grateful for what we have.
And more compassionate towards those who don't have as much.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then when we spend time praying and reflecting,
right, connecting with Allah,
it gives us the strength to actually live out those values.
Exactly. It's about strengthening that relationship with Allah, seeking His guidance, asking for His forgiveness.
Yeah. The booklet also talks about how important it is to focus on community during Ramadan.
Yes. It's a time to come together as a community, to support each other, to share meals, to pray together.
Yeah, to break down those barriers and build those connections.
Right, and not just within the Muslim community, but with everyone.
So, inviting our non-Muslim friends to iftar, explaining the meaning of Ramadan.
Sharing our traditions, building bridges of understanding.
Yeah, that's so important. Because Ramadan is about so much more than just abstaining from food and drink, right?
It is. It's about building a more peaceful and just world, a world where everyone feels valued and respected.
And the booklet keeps reminding us that we should do all of this with the right intentions.
Absolutely. It's not about showing off or seeking praise.
It's about pleasing Allah.
Yes. And knowing that He sees the sincerity of our hearts.
And that the real rewards are those spiritual blessings.
Right. The closeness to Allah, the peace of mind, the contentment in our hearts.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to say it's been so inspiring to explore this booklet with you.
It has been a really good discussion.
Yeah. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that Ramadan is a journey.
Yes, a journey of faith, of self-discovery, of transformation.
And it's a journey that continues even after the month is over.
It does. It's about carrying that spirit of Ramadan with us throughout the year.
Striving to be the best versions of ourselves, making a positive difference in the world.
And may Allah grant us all the strength and guidance to do that.
I mean, thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into making the most of Ramadan. We hope it's been beneficial for you.
May you all have a blessed and fulfilling Ramadan.
And until next time.